Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Pickens, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Now that is really long distance here.
He was walking backwards, Judge.
Okay, our invitation today will be delivered by Pastor Darwin Jordan from the Fort Worth Presbyterian Church. Thank you very much for coming out today. After the invitation, please remain standing for our pledges. Thank you, sir.
Let's pray. Well, God, we thank you as the one who gives anything good that we have, anything good that we enjoy in this world. Oh, Lord, you are supreme goodness. You demonstrated it in giving your own Son, in coming in the flesh, God in the flesh, to sacrifice yourself for others. Lord, you are utterly other-centered. Amazing that you would do this for sinners. As one 10-year-old girl in our church cried out one day, "Who does that?" And indeed, Lord, who does that? A God who sacrifices for others. We praise you as that God that rules this world. And, oh, Lord, we need your Spirit. These men and women need your Spirit. Thank you for their hard work, for their planning, for all of their efforts. Give them grace, Lord, that they will be just like you, utterly other-centered, thinking of the good of this community and working constantly for its good and its blessing, for righteousness, mercy, and justice. Lord, we pray, expecting you to hear our prayers. We pray it for your glory and honor. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you, Pastor, for being out here today.
Good morning, court members.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we have several items related to the agenda this morning. Under Human Resources, item 8F6. This is issues dealing with administrative claims and other claims dealing with United Healthcare. There is a court communication in your red folder this morning as it relates to that particular item. Also, members of court, under purchasing, item 8H10. This is Leidos Security Detection and Automation. There is a revised court communication. It was a funding year change that we made on that particular item. I would like to also go over, and now that we're at the last court meeting in August and moving into September, just several dates that are going to be important as we go into September. Next Tuesday, the 1st of September, JPS is going to bring their proposed budget to the Commissioners Court for your review and comments. As you know, we will go ahead and approve their budget, their tax rate, our budgets, and all other documents that would be on the 8th of September. On the 14th of September, which is a Monday, we are going to have the presentations as it relates to the JPS program management groups. There will be 4 of them that Monday. That will be held. That will begin at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it'll be held here in the Commissioner's courtroom. We have scheduled those so that we'll be able to complete them all in that one day. Then also, members of court, as you know, September has 5 court meetings, and normally we take one of those meetings off. We're proposing that we take September 22nd off, no court, And one of the reasons is because that will give us just a little bit longer to prepare the special budgets, which we intend to bring to the Commissioners Court on the 29th. So I will send you, each of the court members, a memo outlining all of those dates. But I wanted to bring that up to you here also because, especially as it relates to the September 22nd meeting, so everyone can know we're not going to have Commissioners Court that day. And if those departments and elected officials that need to submit things, we have the Tuesday before that and the Tuesday after that we will consider those items. Obviously, September 29th will be the last meeting of our fiscal year. So with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that the court may have. If not, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of August the 18th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Fickus, you need to turn yourself on there. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Brooks, I know you presented this proclamation last week.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Last week I presented a resolution declaring a day of prayer in Tarrant County. I asked for its ratification this morning. I so move.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius? Well,
We do have the
yeah, we have the consent agenda. We probably ought to go ahead and do that.
Move approval of consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, we're going to change the agenda up a little bit from what we've done in the past, and we're going to have two briefing items. The first one deals with the Tarrant County 911 Emergency Assistance District text to 911 update. Mr. Rich Brunson is going to be making that presentation. Mr. Brunson is the county's representative on the 911 board. And then after that, we will then go to the current and emerging health issues presentation by Mr. Tenasia. Rick.
Very good.
Morning, Judge and Commissioners. Ms. Haynes sends her regrets if she couldn't be here, but
Good morning,
I
Rick.
think we'll do just fine. Today we'll talk briefly about text to 911. Let me see.
You need to go down. You work.
I do, but I didn't realize it was down and down and down. Just as a little bit of background. Our target date to go live with Texas 911 in Tarrant County is 11/1/2020. We had earlier said that it would be early in the fall, but with COVID and some of the travel restrictions of some of our suppliers, we've just not had the people to actually install the equipment. But we are well on our way. We do have a trial system set up in our lab, so we believe that we're on target. And as a background, we did come to Commissioners Court in 2018 and asked for you to pass a resolution to endorse Texas 911, which you did, and we are grateful for that. We had a public hearing at the 911 district in March of 2019. That was a general required triannual public hearing and to talk about the future of 911 in Tarrant County. And we had approximately 15 different people appear to speak from various segments of our community in favor of Texas 911. Biggest turnout we've ever had. So we told the 911 call center managers about this in March of this year. We had planned to originally brief the Commissioners Court in March, but COVID happened, so we're doing that now. And we will also eventually do it with Fort Worth, Arlington, Irving, and Grand Prairie. The Mayor's Council, we've already had discussions about it. The training for our 911 call centers will begin approximately 3 weeks before we go live, and the community education will probably begin around the middle of October. The key points in the education are call if you can, text if you can't. It's always better to be able to talk to the person. Second thing is you must have an active cell phone with the texting plans on it. With a disabled telephone, you can still call 911, but you have to have an active phone with texting activated to text the 911. And it's English only. That's kind of the standard right now across the country. And no abbreviations or emojis are allowed. And the other piece that's not listed here is that if you text 911 and also text a loved one in the same message, the call will not go through. So we want to make sure that the people know how to use it properly. Our cost, $400,000 to install, $150,000 for annual software maintenance. The district will fund both of those. The potential impacts on the 911 call centers is there could be an increase in the volume of service calls. There could be some staffing challenges or changes because of the changing dynamic of the population of the calls coming in, and because of the no translation services being available. That's going to be an important part of our public education. In terms of concern about the increased volume, this is what we've seen from some of the larger areas across the country. The percentages that are posted is the percent of traffic of the total 911 traffic in each of those entities. So the hockey stick that people worry about is not happening yet. And we keep very good statistics on our call volumes on a daily basis in Tarrant County, and so we will be able to know quickly if our volume of 911 calls is starting to get high enough that we need to look at staffing changes. The next deal is a 30-second PSA that we developed earlier this year. It was intended originally to start playing in theaters in the July timeframe, but since we don't have theaters open right now, it's just kind of been sitting there. But this is the message that we want people to hear.
What was that?
Pretty effective and compelling. Thank you, Judge, for also sharing that in the State of the County presentation.
Rick,
Yes, sir.
how accurate is the software in locating a person who texts rather than calls?
It's no different than the accuracy of a voice call.
Good.
And I will say, or also share, there's a new technology coming out, and we just found out about this, that our district has been testing with T-Mobile that is much more accurate than anything else in the market today. And our next testing will be hopefully with AT&T and Verizon. So location accuracy is an important initiative across the industry not only on the X and Y axis, but also the Z axis. You got a 20-story building, it doesn't help that you called to 1000 Main Street.
We'll thank the 911 district for getting to this and getting to it successfully.
I remember when you first asked for it. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Thank you, sir. You bet. Thank you.
GK, let me ask a question before we move on. Are we gonna have anything from elections as far as a briefing?
If we have anything, it will be after closed today.
Okay, because I was just gonna,
We
Not
are
have
going to,
people
we
in
are
our
going to
briefings.
have a briefing from budget. We thought we would take that after, whenever we get to that point on the agenda.
okay.
With that, Your Honor, members of court, if we can now move to the current and emerging health trends and ask Mr. Tenasia, Dr. Tenasia, to come forward.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court.
Good morning, Benny.
Back here again to brief you on the emerging health issues. So West Nile continues to be a story. We've had some good ground efforts for spraying. As you can see, the county data is starting to trickle back down. It's still very high. I think the positivity rate on the pools is still at about 20%. Vector index is also coming down. But the main issue remains Northeast Tarrant County. The data did come down from a high of about 58% positive pools to about 50% positive pools, and it's sort of stabilized there. Vector index continues to climb in Northeast Tarrant County, so we're continuing to work through various aspects of our due diligence to see what we need to do to improve those numbers. But again, aerial spraying stays one of the considerations. But to catch you up, we are launching.
Could I ask you a question, please, about West Nile? What is the incubation period between a person being bitten by an infected mosquito and the onset of symptoms?
I'd have to go verify, but I think it's about a week. Just kind of vaguely remembering that. And the reason is sometimes it's hard to figure out when the mosquito bit you. So it's a little vague, but I'll go down and verify that.
I know exactly when the mosquito bit me. I'm just trying to figure out what the window is.
Yes, I will verify that and have that for you next time. But one of the things that we're doing from an awareness campaign standpoint, we're relaunching our Be Mosquito Free campaign. We have some grant dollars available to us to do advertising on a preparedness grant, and we're going to utilize those to relaunch that campaign that was very successful in 2016. And that includes paid advertising through social media, I guess pushing some videos out that we've had and some other creative materials that our vendor puts together. And then also some Pandora radio ads specifically targeted to, I guess, radio listeners. So the idea is to get the message out. Some of the videos that we have show different methods of prevention, how to take care of your property, all the hose-based sprayers that we've been talking about, dunks, using DEET, how to clean up your property, all those type of things. So the idea is to, again, raise the awareness on how to prevent West Nile for yourself and your community. But in the same time, we're continuing our efforts and due diligence on what else can be done to get this, mosquito data under control before we get a lot of human cases. So for COVID-19, situation continues to sort of grow. Globally, there's 23.5 million cases and 812,000 deaths. Nationwide, there are about 5.7 million cases and 177,000 deaths. And I wanted to point out, because there's been some conversation about, well, deaths are not occurring at a fast pace, it's only a few people, so forth. Just for comparison, in 5 months, we've had 177,000 deaths. Flu, on average, kills about 36,000 a year. So already we're, several times higher than what flu does in a whole year in just about 5 months, and we're about to enter into flu season here in a month or so, and COVID has no signs of letting up. So it may remain with us throughout the flu season as well. Texas case counts, 580,000 cases, 11,000 deaths. Tarrant County, today we crossed 40,000 cases, 519 deaths. That's 4 new deaths to report, and 32,000 recoveries. The graph on the right, we haven't shared in a while, but this week was a pretty heavy week, the week that went by. We had about, I think, 59 deaths reported last week, and a lot of those ended up being in August, but many were in July also. And I wanted to point out that the week of 25th of July was our heaviest week with over close to 54 deaths, and that falls in line with what we saw around the 4th of July surge. So 2-3 weeks down the road, you see an impact of people dying from the illness that they try to fight it, but were not successful. So that was a very heavy week. Data is still growing. I mean, recent numbers are not always reported well. I know we have some in the queue that we're investigating. I know you all heard me on other calls to say that DSHS has data now that's showing our count is higher. The last I checked, we were at 512 on our count, and they were at 547. So we've requested what's the difference. And they had promised that local health departments will get access to their death record data, so we're waiting for that to happen to see if there's anything that we're not seeing. So we'll, try to match up as much as we can, but that's why we told you earlier that there's going to be a discrepancy a little bit when they change their method of looking at death data. It's going to be variations here and there occasionally. Any questions on any of that? One thing I wanted to point out, we've sort of lost our number 3 spot on testing. We're at 304,000 tests for the county. Bexar County has edged above us. So you'll hear a little bit today about various testing sites, but we encourage all Tarrant County residents to take opportunity to come get tested if they have any symptoms, if they have any exposure risk, whether they are in a retail setting worker, whether they've been in a large group gathering. All of those are qualifying events. If they've started school recently, that's a qualifying event because you're in a large group gathering. You're welcome to come, have a test done at any of our locations across the county. And that way, at least we are, getting our numbers up and trying to catch as many people as we can who may test positive with COVID-19.
Vinny, that still is a 60,000 test increase from last week.
It is.
So let me ask this question. For the longest, we found out around the first part of August that the state was only able to enter 40-something thousand tests a day, and that they were throwing all the excess down into a column or into a row that they would eventually work through. August 1st came along, and didn't they increase the 48 to 100? But is the 100 enough? If we're doing 60,000 tests.
So my understanding is that same issue is happening here in this data. So I only take a screenshot of the top counties, but if you look at the bottom of that chart, there's that unknown county area. They've parked a lot of tests there. So I don't know that we got 60,000 tests done in the last week. I know that the number increased by 60,000. They were tests conducted in Tarrant County, but I have little confidence that they were all done in the last week. And the reason is that number of unknown has been sitting there, and they've kind of eaten away at that as they figure out what counties it is.
So has the state given us any indication that they're caught up or anywhere near catching up? I've heard a lot about, well, can we trust the numbers that we're getting? Have they done anything to tell us that they're now caught up or?
Not that I've heard, sir. We have calls with them, and sometimes we get some answers that don't always make sense. So we're
ask the question and see what they say.
Yes, sir. I will. At the next time
they'll know who you got it from.
Yes, sir. I know. We'll do that, and trust me, the frustration is both ways. That we need to be able to rely on this data to make decisions here locally as well. So certainly. That's a constant conversation and a concern on our part as well. And sometimes it's not very clear why the data jumps the way it jumps, and it's frustrating.
Well, they keep stressing to do the tests, but what good does it do if they put them if they don't have enough bandwidth down there to put the tests in? And we've always, from the very beginning, we've said we need to know who's doing, what's happening to the tests that we're sending in, and we've gotten nothing.
Yes, sir, that is correct. We have very limited access to what they know. That is correct. So U.S. situational awareness, 5.7 million cases, as I said before, 177,000 deaths. The map that I pointed, or the graph that I wanted to point out was Texas. We're starting to see some good declines in our data. So that's good news. We're starting to see that all across some of the states that had huge numbers: Florida, California, Arizona, Texas, Idaho. All of these states had huge numbers, and Louisiana also. So we're all starting to see a decline, and that's showing up in the national data. U.S. data is in a downtrend for the last several weeks.
Benny,
Yes, sir.
I've noticed the past couple of weeks that the daily new infections are down substantially across the county. But the death rate does not seem to be tracking with the new infection rate. Is that because of the way the data is being reported, or is there some anomaly that is keeping the death rate high while the infection rate seems to be on a downward trend?
So the reason for death rate to be high is that it's a lagging indicator. People get the illness, they fight it off for a while, are hospitalized, and then eventually, if they are not successful, that person dies. So it takes several weeks for that to occur. And again, some delay on getting that report done and verifying everything. So it's a very lagging indicator. So the death spike that we saw was related to spike of cases in July. And as you can see, we reported that last week. So it took almost 6-7 weeks of all of that to happen for us to be able to see the data. And to rectify that lag, we reported out based on date of death. So once all is verified, you see that the spike actually occurred during the week of 25th of July. But we're just now totally observing that because of all the delays that occur. And once we report it, then you look at it accurately. So it is going to be a lag. For now, we're probably going to see an increase in cases. And then as we correlate to 3 or 4 weeks down the road, we're going to see a decrease in deaths that correlates to a decrease in cases occurring now. Texas situation, I wanted to point something out. So we're seeing the decline in cases, we're seeing declines in death numbers, but the positivity rate has become, in my view, a little unstable. It worries me, and the reason is either we're missing something, that means there's a spike coming, or they have calculation problems again in their data. I just don't know what to make of it. It is a little unstable at this point. Our data, I can tell you, has been trending downwards, and it's very consistent with what we're seeing, and I'll show you that. But I just wanted to point that out, that it's been something that we've all been watching, because whatever happens to Texas happens to us, right? I mean, we're within the state of Texas. So it's a little bit of a worrying indicator that it's diverging from what we're seeing with the rest of the picture. Tarrant County indicators are looking fairly good. Hospital admissions are down. They're almost half of where we were at the peak. I think the last I checked that we were at 340. It was a little bit of an uptick. We were down to like 330 something a couple of days ago. And at the peak, we were at 740. So we're come down significantly. People that are with the COVID-19 in hospitals, compared to total bed capacity, we're at about 6% utilization. Actually, I think it ticked up to 7% yesterday. And then of all the occupied beds, in my mind, that's a more accurate indicator that people that are already hospitalized with some illness, how much of that is being consumed by COVID-19, just a single disease, compared to heart attacks, accidents, everything else. We're utilizing 10% of those occupied beds with COVID-19. So that's still a significant number, but it's significantly down from a 20% peak that we saw in July. So that's very good news. We're down. The trend is downwards, and I like the downward trend. Case trend is also down. We're seeing some, again, declines in reporting, and as we report by specimen collection date, as you can see, the peak really was in July, and we're continuing to trend down for several weeks now, so that's great news. Things that we're doing in Tarrant County, like wearing a mask, avoiding large social gatherings, Those things are working. I know there's been a lot of consternation and discussion about keeping the bars closed. Seems to be having an effect. So all of those policy measures seem to be working. Positivity rate, again, is trending down. I mean, it has its daily variations and gyrations and so forth, but we're at about 9% positivity rate. And as you can see, the trend has been fairly smooth downward since July. So I feel that this is fairly accurate. COVID-like illness, again, is a confirming but a leading indicator. We don't see any, at least today, we don't see any trouble spots in Tarrant County. This is directly from the ERs. People seeking health care for COVID-like illness is down, so that's good news. And the 7-day moving average is trending down as well. So how do we continue to bend the curve? We wear masks everywhere. CDC has upped their guidance, and the White House Task Force on COVID-19 has upped their guidance that not only outdoors but indoors continue to wear masks everywhere. Stay home as much as possible, and then stay 6 feet away from others when you're out and about and in company of others. Avoid large group gatherings and follow public health guidance. Those are all the things that we can do at this point to bend the curve. Again, a reminder that we don't have a vaccine. We don't have a pill like Tamiflu to give somebody that, okay, go home and take this medication. What we have are investigational drugs that are being tried in the hospital setting for severely ill patients. So there's really not much to fight this with other than these public health measures. A couple of other slides, Mythbusters. I know there's been a lot of conversation and comments made even at this podium, and I found some information from WHO that clearly states that it's a fact. Studies have shown hydroxychloroquine does not have clinical benefits in treating COVID-19. I know that's been asserted several times here and in the media. I just wanted to show that because it's a worldwide myth right now, and we wanted to make sure that the facts are shown. Another one we've heard, prolonged use of masks is causing, brain damage and carbon dioxide poisoning. That's a myth. Prolonged use of medical masks, when properly worn, does not cause CO2 intoxication or oxygen deficiency. Again, a lot of us are wearing masks all day long. I don't think we're suffering brain damage. And again, it's proven by science as a fact that there is no issues with doing that. I know there's been a lot made about mask breath, halitosis, as if it's a new phenomena because of masks. It is not. Halitosis is simply bad breath. And we all have it. Even though you brush your teeth well every morning, when you eat food, drink coffee, you're going to get bad breath. So if you put your hand across your face all day, you're going to smell your breath, and that's what masks are doing. So I just wanted to point those facts out because they've been asserted here several times, and it's part of my job to make sure the myths are busted.
The masks over the nose.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
There's a few of y'all out there who need to kind of go ahead and cover the nose with the masks. Thank you very much.
Wait a minute, Benny. We've got Labor Day coming up. And for a lot of our school districts, we've got the beginning of school. And we'd all like to get to the place where we have in-class instruction for all of our kids. So it's important that we don't have a Labor Day spike.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is your advice in order to avoid a Labor Day spike so that perhaps sometime in September we may get to in-person classroom instruction?
It's going to be an unpopular choice, but stay home with your family. That's all I can tell you. Don't invite extended family. Don't invite neighbors to a cookout. Even the governor, when he was in Dallas, he pointed out that a common theme throughout the last several months has been family gatherings and other large group gatherings that lead to spread of COVID-19. There's been some tragic situations over in Dallas. A family isolated for a long period of time. 14 members got together. I think 13 got COVID-19. So, and they met in June, right after all the stay-at-home orders were lifted. So there are many, many examples. In Tarrant County, we know of situations. There was a wedding-related situation. There was a birthday party situation. Those are all family gatherings. Labor Day brings families together to enjoy the holiday. Do it with your immediate family, just a family unit. Stay away from extended family. Bring them on
folks
Skype.
you live with.
Only those who live with every day. That is correct. And that's an unpopular choice because we like to celebrate our holidays. But in the face of COVID-19 and no other prevention measures there, that's the best advice I can give anybody. Enjoy the holiday with your immediate family.
Wear the mask,
Yes, sir.
wash the hands, separation,
That is
social
correct.
distancing.
Absolutely.
We gotta stay that course right now. You've started some schools. How has that gone thus far?
We've had some challenges. I know of at least 5 or 6 situations related to schools. Some started early, some of the private schools, they've had issues. Some have had teachers coming in for training before school started, they've had issues. And just last couple of days, we've had a school district that had 2 separate situations. One involved students. So we're starting to see that happen, and most of the schools are starting with sort of a gradual approach. They're starting online learning or a hybrid model. But as you put students together, we're starting to see issues. So again, that's fair warning to everybody that as you bring groups together, if we don't follow all the steps, there's always opportunity for a disease like COVID-19 to spread. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, court members, we have, we're going into the administrator section now. We do have some audience participation forms. I believe that we have 3 different types this morning. And we do not have anyone who will be dialing in. So the other 2, we have 2 that are not related to the administrator section, and we might want to hear those because they were not, there's one in person and one just to file a document with us. Your Honor, do you want to go
Well,
to the?
those are on specific items that might come up later on. So
Right, yes, sir.
I think I'd rather put those aside and go ahead and take the ones.
That would be good. If you would, once again, give us a listing so that we can make sure we can get them in the courtroom.
I'll try to recall that.
I normally put numbers on mine, so.
Yeah, but I'll move mine around. This will be Amanji Tosca, followed by Blanca, followed by Rebecca Rogers. No, that's not Amanji.
Who was the second?
Blanca, and then Rebecca Rogers. So Amanji, Tosca, Blanca, and Rebecca Rogers. Here they come.
Hello and good morning. My name is Amadea Tosca. Governor Abbott and all you authorities are instilling fear, anger, and violence not only to our citizens but to the police as well. All for a mask that is forced upon us. Do you know that statistics show that police suicide are high? I wonder why. Maybe because the high authorities like yourself are forcing the heroes to become monsters instead of heroes. How can you live with yourself, Your Honor, knowing that you were the cause of a police officer's suicide, and all because of a mask that was forced upon us, and our rights of having a choice was stolen from us? This is the shirt that was torn while I was detained because I didn't wear a mask at CBS that I am now banned from. You and the rest of the authorities are creating monsters just for a mask. There are better ways to generate income than violating human rights. One way that income can be generated is by making a device that holds all sizes of phones for cars so people don't use their phones while driving. The device would have a serial number and have to be registered with motor vehicles once a year. This device would have a chip with an alarm system. When you enter your car, if you don't have the Bluetooth hands-free phone use, then every car must have this, and you have to put your phone into this device upon entering your car. If you open this device while driving, an alarm will go off and notify the police, and a ticket will be issued. I gave this idea to the government, and this would be a better way to generate income to assure safety on our roads. Each town and city would have to fix all sidewalks and streets with this money first, and after that they are fixed, each town can keep the money generated with this idea and distribute it properly for each town. I heard Collin County as well as other counties are not as strict with this mask deal. New Jersey and New York looks up to Texas. We shouldn't be the followers. We are Texas. We should be the leaders.
Thank you, Amity. Blanca, followed by Rebecca Rogers, followed by Marvin Todd Brock.
Hello, thank you for having us and for listening to us. We feel honored and blessed that our representatives that we chose to represent us are listening to us. I would like to, is the doctor still here? Doctor, I would like to address some of the comments that you were making. Hydroxychloroquine, you say does not work, right? That the WHO, which is an agent of the communists, sponsored primarily by the communist China, is that correct? Have you done your research?
Ma'am,
Okay,
you
please
need
do
to
that, but
address us. You're going to address us.
Sorry, okay, I'm sorry. Hydroxychloroquine, we have had, Dr. Zelenko alone, I don't know how many up to now, has had 699 cases, treating them with hydroxychloroquine with zinc and the Z-Pak with 100% success rate on those 699 patients. He does have documented studies that he has presented, but we don't have any time to be doing all these sophisticated studies because there is some kind of a virus that they have thrown on us, a bioterrorist attack perhaps. We know it came from China. We know it came from a laboratory. We have Dr. Emanuel. She has now 500 cases that she has treated with hydroxychloroquine with 100% success rate on at least 350, I believe all 500, but I know for sure 350 cases, 100%, but it's not as expensive as a vaccine. It's not as expensive as the plan that the communists have for us. I say no. We do not want vaccinations that have had no human trials. They are not proven. They're not necessary because the only reason we should have a vaccine, doctor, is if there is no other method of healing that disease. We have found that the butezidine, which is a COVIDsilverbullet.com, Dr. Bartlett's remedy that he got after prayer, heals COVID. Hydroxychloroquine heals COVID. I say this doctor needs to be removed. We're calling for his resignation. He is not working for we the people. He is not representing the truth. He has presented nothing but lies. He wants us to keep the mask on, to stay locked down, and we know that that has caused more problems than it has remedies. It is causing our people to die of depression, of anxiety, of fear, all for a pandemic, which is more of a plandemic, which is more of a scamdemic. We the people are tired of the lies. We want and we're demanding the truth. We're tired of the fear mongering. We will not live by fear anymore. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And in the name of Jesus, I say, come back to our roots. Come back to our faith. Come back to our Christianity and say, no, devil, you cannot have America. America shall be saved.
Your time is up.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Rebecca Rogers.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Rogers.
It is human nature not to want to be wrong. Our pride oftentimes gets the best of us, and it is hard for us to admit when we have made a mistake. So it takes a strong man or woman to admit when they are wrong. Those that can humble themselves to admit they are wrong will gain more respect from others than if they choose to ignore their mistakes. Let's look at some data. We are 157 days of 15 days to flatten the curve. Only 3% of ER visits are for COVID symptoms. Only 1.9% of active cases are hospitalized. Only 0.14% of Americans are hospitalized with COVID. Only 0.7% of Americans are currently a positive case. The median age of death is 78, which is the average life expectancy in the U.S. We have conducted more than 40 million more tests than in the next closest free country. A fellow judge, Chris Hill, in neighboring Collin County, spoke out yet again regarding the inflated and misrepresentation of COVID data. Chris Hill has not just taken the words of the CDC and the Texas Department of Health at face value. He has researched and stood with truth and integrity. Collin County isn't a small county, but one with 1,072,650 residents. He has asked hard questions and maintained the belief that constitutional rights should be upheld. Please bear with me as I share the details of the Channel 11 CBS DFW report on August 19th with you. Collin County, Chris Hill has added a disclaimer to the Collin County COVID-19 dashboard telling residents the county has no confidence in the data coming from the state. Like Dallas County and other counties across the state, Collin County reported a major spike in COVID-19 cases last week due to a backlog at the state level. However, it appears that the majority of the more than 1,200 positive cases reported last Friday came from tests conducted between March and July. I've left you the article for you to continue reading. Mr. Vinny Tejo needs to resign. His mythbusters are false information. There have been doctors that have spoken out frequently about the positive use of hydroxychloroquine, and it has been approved to be used by doctors in Texas for off-label use. There has been scientific data that has shown masks do not work. It does not protect against the virus. So, how much better do these numbers have to be for real life to return? When is the curve finally flattened? You, as our county representatives, have been afforded great power during this disaster declaration. With great power becomes a great responsibility. However, unlike the Collin County Commissioner's Courts and unlike Collin County Commissioner Court and Judge Chris Hill, our county representatives have bought into the deception and propaganda. I challenge you to reevaluate the data that has been repeatedly thrown at you with a fresh new perspective. A wise man can confess when he is wrong, but a fool will defend it. I like to think that you are a wise man, Mr. Whitley, and that you will start to rethink these mandates that you have made based on deceptive information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. Marvin Todd Brock.
Judge, can you give me some names after Mr. Brock?
Well, okay, he says. Next, followed by Andy Gonzalez, followed by Janet Jackson, followed by Mindy White.
Thank you.
Mr. Brock.
Good morning, Judge. Today I'm here only because, and really not prepared other than just to pour out my heart to you, because of my grandson and because of my son who's a senior in high school. My grandson needs some special classes he can't put his hands on now because of the mask and what's been cut back. My senior in high school is now sitting in his bedroom downstairs doing class online. My oldest boy goes to the University of Texas in Austin and is in his last year of engineering there and is going to start on the 26th doing classes in my other bedroom downstairs. And to think that, and also I had to pay full tuition to even make that happen. Absolutely unbelievable, you know, but anyway, that's that. But the thing is I came here today because I have emailed and texted you a bunch of times or tweeted on your account a bunch of times about just what's going on here. And I feel like you can help us here. And you know, with these kids that are absolutely not only being held back with these masks and the mandates, they're socially being just beaten down into another culture. And it's absolutely unacceptable to think that my grandbaby, my son, and my oldest boy are in this predicament right now. Right now, my wife, about 2 weeks ago, broke a tooth. So we tried to go to the dentist, and they said, well, there are nerves showing, and you're going to be in some pain. We're going to give you some pain medicine to help you get through the times. But our appointments are another ways out because we had to cut down on so many different levels of appointments to follow what the county mandates. That dentist in Dallas County, so that's a whole nother world, you know. But anyway, she also is in a case where she's pretty depressed, just what's going on with our whole group entirely, you know. She doesn't want to get out. I don't want to get out. I don't want to go somewhere and have to put a towel over my face to get in there and buy something. I got kicked out of trying to buy a bag of dog food last week because I didn't have a mask, you know. I took a McDonald's napkin, held it over my face, tucked it under my glasses, and they said, that's fine, it's a face covering, you know.
2 minutes.
The common sense on all this makes no sense whatsoever. We're fighting something here that has a 99.5%, and forgive my numbers if I'm off a little bit, survivability rate. And we call it a pandemic. And you know, those that are in that small percentage that don't make it are in a lot older class. If anything needs to be done, this thing needs to be switched around so that the healthy people can come out, maintain their immune systems that God gave us. He's been working on it a long time. And let him do the work of this. Because we cannot beat a virus. We cannot hide in a basement until a virus is just mysteriously gone. And you know, everybody's working on faulty data. It doesn't take anyone any time at all turning off, cutting your cable, and getting out and looking out in the real world about all the different doctors that are touting the HCQ, touting how herd immunity needs to be done. We could flatten the curve. We could throw the biggest hump in this thing in the world, and it would solve itself.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Appreciate you coming out today. Andy Gonzalez. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
All right. So let's see here. Can I get more time today?
Now let's go with 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can I raise this up? Oh, okay.
You're not going to start. Don't start the time until it's ready.
Okay, I'm not going to touch anything. Sorry. Okay. He who gives up liberty for security deserves neither and gives up both. Benjamin Franklin. The lockdowns have been more detrimental to our health than the virus itself. There was not sufficient medical evidence to warrant such drastic, draconian measures as we have now the evidence to prove. 99.8% of people survive it. On the contrary, thousands of doctors concur that in fact, lockdowns were not necessary, were inconsequential in the spreading of a virus. Mortality rates were slightly higher than those nations that did not lock down or quarantine. Most importantly, such drastic measures violate our constitutional freedoms, which our forefathers fought fiercely to gain and were not warranted. A petition to Texas elected officials and the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, to honor the constitutional freedoms, personal autonomy, professional livelihoods, and reinstate and preserve all personal freedoms and liberties, and remove that were removed during any public removed during any public health disaster. We petition a public health declaration must be voted on and pass the House and Senate majority before Texas governor can make a public health declaration. We the people petition a public health declaration expires after 30 days and must be voted on and to renew it by the House and Senate majority. We petition family wishes to be honored for identification and disposal of their loved ones' remains. We petition individuals determine their own prevention, control, and treatment of infectious disease. The government departments should not provide strategies to helping public determine their options with full disclosures of risks and benefits. We petition individuals impacted by chemical, biological, and radiological agents can determine their own measures to control and treat contamination when it affects their own bodies and cannot be mandated to wear masks or other measures. The government or department cannot forcibly treat individuals, rather should provide information to fully inform the public of the options available. We petition testing and physical examinations can only be performed on a voluntary basis and not be forced or coerced on any individual, family unit, or group of people. We petition individuals only receive vaccinations on a voluntary basis. The government or assigned department may not forcibly vaccinate or order individuals to be vaccinated against an infectious disease to prevent the spread of communicable or non-communicable or individuals exposed to or infected with disease receive treatment or prophylaxis on a voluntary basis only and not by force. There's more to this, but obviously didn't have time.
Thank you very much.
All right, God bless you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Janet Jackson, followed by Mindy White, followed by Landy Mowen, followed by Doug Hines.
Hello, I'm Janet Jackson. And I don't know how many of you have children. I don't know how many of you have children, but I would like you to think of your 3-year-old niece, nephew, godchild, daughter, son, cousin, nephew, whoever they are. Those children need hope. Those children are born into a world that is very hostile, and it is more hostile by the minute. Those children are born with a need for love and acceptance. Now imagine that child has a father who walks out on them, and now that child feels shamed, unloved, unworthy, not pretty enough, not smart enough. Now another man comes into that child's life, and that child thinks that this man loves that child. But instead, that man uses manipulation, that he loves that child and instills fear. This child becomes marginalized and jumps through hoops trying to win the affections of their father. But that father decides he needs to oppress, he needs to control, he needs to manipulate. And he does that with fear. He does that with physical abuse. He does that with sexual abuse. You are destroying our culture by the choices you are making. You are becoming that abuser. You are abusing the marginalized. You are manipulating and instilling fear to have control. And I'm going to read a verse, and I'm going to hold Benny Taneja responsible for his actions. They are disgusting. He is standing at this podium lying. He is using the Washington Post as facts. That is not an appropriate resource. The Washington Times is not an appropriate resource. So I challenge you men up there. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. This man is giving you wicked counsel. He is not a doctor, and he has no right to practice medicine without a license. He has no right to tell any doctor they cannot use hydroxychloroquine. That he should be charged with practicing medicine without a license. That is a violation. Does not walk in the counsel of the wicked or stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of mockers. He is mocking y'all. He is manipulating y'all, and you are allowing him to do it with the lies that he spews up here every single week.
3 minutes.
But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law you should be meditating day and night.
Ms. Jackson, thank you for your comments. Mindy White. Yes, be careful. Yes, he is.
Address the court, ma'am.
Come in and address the court.
Mr. Taneja, I don't see him.
You're to address the court.
Okay. Well, is he here in the room?
Yes.
I don't see him. Can I see him?
Mr. Taneja is right. Taneja is right there.
Okay.
You're going to address the court, or you're not going to talk in the court.
Okay.
That's the way
I
it
can't
is.
speak to him?
No, you're going to speak
Okay.
to us.
Well, I don't want to turn my back to him.
Well,
He
you
just
turn his-
lied. He just lied to the people of this court. Okay?
Ma'am, you are entitled to your
It
opinion.
is not my opinion.
Well, then this time is up, and you can leave if you'd like.
Okay. I have my time. I will speak. It is true that mask mouth, that pleurisy, that bacterial lung infections, collapsed lungs, these are issues from continued mask wearing. These are not myths, and he just lied. And that is wrong. And
Where did you
were
get
sitting-
your medical degree?
I have been reading what doctors are saying, okay? And that's not acceptable either to ask that of me. I'll say what I have to say, and then I'll be done. I spoke last week about the propaganda of fear. So here's what a psychiatrist says. Madness is all around us. The public is adopting a personality disorder. I've been treating my whole career. I'm a practicing psychiatrist who specializes in anxiety disorders, paranoid delusions, and irrational fear. I've been treating this in individuals as a specialist. It's hard enough to contain these problems in normal times. What's happening now is a spread of the serious medical condition due to the whole population. It can happen with anything, but here we see a primal fear of disease turning into mass panic. It seems almost deliberate. It is tragic. Once this starts, it could take years to repair the psychological damage, and this is what's being done to us. All I'm asking is for the constitutional right I have to go into public and not wear this. I respect people who wear their masks. I choose not to, and I should have that right to be able to go into a store and not be harassed or have to say, I have a medical condition. And this is what's happened in our society, and this is wrong. And so I asked the question of Mr. Taneja. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but please tell me, what is the rationale for wearing a mask to a table in a restaurant? Wearing a mask to the table, but I can sit there and take it off. What's the rationale behind it? What's the science behind it? And
Well,
I'm not the only one who wants
It's
to know.
not him that you need to be asking. Because
Excuse
his
me?
order, it's not his order, it's my order.
Okay, then can you tell me the rationale and the science
2
behind
minutes.
The rationale, and I'm going to just say this, I have kept quiet, but I am tired of you folks coming in and going after Mr. Taneja for doing what he believes is right and what a lot of other folks believe is right. Each one of us are entitled to our opinions.
So are we.
May I finish? And then I'm going to let you finish. But what I'm going to say to you is the order to wear the masks that I have put in place and that I will extend today is there because I have listened to folks who I respect and who I trust. I know that there are doctors who offer differing opinions on all sides and on all issues. But when it comes to making the decision with regards to wearing the masks, it is my decision. And it's a decision that I go and talk with folks who I respect, who are not being paid to have an opinion one way or the other, and who I have worked with for years, and I trust what they're saying. They do not have a dog in the hunt. They're not getting paid to say one thing or another. And those are the people who I sit down and I talk with, I listen to, and then ultimately make the decision. And that's what has happened in this case. I know Dr. Taneja very well, and I know how hard some of the decisions he makes and some of the decisions that I make are. But if you look at the numbers, and if you've been coming here for weeks and you've seen those numbers go down, to me it is an inconvenience. The rationale behind the table, behind being able to take the mask off when I sit down at the table, is that as long as I'm walking, then I may be spraying people with my breath, with my talking, whatever it may be. You're certainly entitled to believe that when I sit down at the table, I'm sitting across from my wife, who I live with. When a waitress comes up or a waiter comes up, we put the mask back on. When we go in, until we get to our seat, we keep the masks on. If I get up to go to the restroom or to go to visit with someone else, I put the mask on. In my opinion, and that's what counts with regards to this order, I believe that it's a little inconvenience to prevent me from possibly having to close businesses and do those things which I do not want to do again. So if you want to address the mask order, you're looking at the person that you need to address the order to address in that regard. Not to Dr. Tanasian and not to anyone else.
But you're basing this on things that aren't
Not
true.
just him. I told you, as I said earlier, I'm basing that on conversations with many physicians who I have worked with for years in this community. Yes, I've listened to my public health authority and my public health director. I've listened to folks who are the head of the Tarrant County Medical Society, the Dallas County Medical Society, the Collin County Medical Society, the Denton County Medical Society. None of which are being paid to offer an opinion about masks. I listen, I make a decision, I sign an order. So don't blame him. If you want to blame somebody, you look at me and you blame me.
Okay.
Don't call into question his integrity.
You have 1 minute.
What he said was not true, and there is viable treatment, and it's not being told and shared with the public. There's viable treatment. All I'm asking is I want to be able to go into public and not have to wear this.
Well, you're gonna be wearing it for at least another 90 days, just a little bit, because I'm going to extend that order. That doesn't mean it can't be canceled, but it's my full intent to keep the mask order in place with regards to businesses through November the 30th. The governor is the one that puts the order of wearing the masks on the individuals, but my order is on the businesses.
Would you do this? At least put a disclaimer on there to inform the public that there indeed are issues for continued mask wearing. There are.
The order will be as it is.
So you're not going to inform the public of the possible risk of continued mask wearing?
I do not believe those risks are there.
Time.
Thank you.
Landy, how do you pronounce your last name? I apologize.
Martin?
That was, I'll try to remember that next week. Go ahead.
Can I go? Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your service. I want to start by saying there are plenty of doctors, scientists, and PhDs who disagree with the doctor and the governor. And the burden of proof is on the government to prove violating a person's sovereign rights is truly necessary in order to achieve a greater good. A state of emergency related to public health can only be declared if the threat overwhelms the response capabilities of the healthcare workers. Since thousands of Texas healthcare workers have been furloughed all across the state of Texas, there is zero evidence for grounds that this state of emergency has anything to do with public health. According to the CDC, the testing percentages are now below what would even be considered a pandemic. There is no threat that overwhelms the current resources of the state, since COVID-related deaths have been obviously inflated, corrected, lied about, and statistically maneuvered to fit a narrative. And since we do not have a reliable test for COVID, the CDC itself states, quote, "A positive test result shows you might have antibodies from an infection with the virus that causes COVID-19. However, there is a chance a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with a virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as one that causes the common cold." Are you kidding me? So we're labeling immunocompromised people as deaths from COVID. and most of those occurred in New York. Therefore, COVID-19 cannot lawfully be classified as an epidemic. An epidemic is when a disproportionately large number of people are experiencing an outbreak of a disease. There is no such evidence in Texas. Therefore, the basis of the state of emergency is invalid and unlawful. We can see clearly that the fatality rate is far below that of something like tuberculosis, which kills millions every year and is highly infectious. There have never been mask mandates or the 666 social distancing rules enforced. Furthermore, the state of emergency should have been terminated. What are we doing? There are no legal grounds to continue the state of emergency when less than 1% of those infected have died, and the average age of a COVID death is 78 years old. Regarding the length of the state of emergency, the law is murky. For the declaration of local emergencies, the governing body is required to renew that every 30 days. I would like to know what the lawmakers are doing to address this invalid and unlawful state of emergency declaration. Due to inaccurate testing and unreliable testing, inflated COVID deaths, and the fact that we've lost fewer people to COVID than other viruses, it's obvious that this is not a pandemic at all, but a plandemic, rehearsed ever so thoroughly by Bill Gates and his cronies at the Event 201, look it up, and it is being dragged out by the Democrats to keep Trump from being reelected. This is also about pushing a never used before in history, untested RNA vaccine that will forever alter our human DNA, our God-given DNA. Now it's a mask required to travel or get on a plane. It's a mask required to go to groceries. Soon it'll be a vaccine. Do you want to put that into your family? Thank you for your time. God bless.
Doug Hines.
She went to the back to get more people.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, Mr. Hines, we have Kevin Moore, included with 3 others.
Kevin Moore, then Jody, then Krista. Good morning.
Good morning. I've urged this commission on my previous 3 visits to closely analyze the risk-benefit of killing the freedoms of Tarrant County residents in the name of COVID safety. I'm here to talk about the background of why I think this is false science and some of the myths that have been going on. And I'd like to talk about myth busting today. That is the myth that hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. For example, Stephen Hatfield, a well-known physician, veteran virologist, and author of 3 Seconds Till Midnight, recently wrote, there are now 53 studies that show positive results of hydroxychloroquine in COVID infections. There are 14 global studies that show neutral or negative results, and 10 of them were patients in very late stages of COVID-19 where no antiviral drug can be expected to make much effect. Of the remaining 4 studies, 2 came from the same University of Minnesota author, which involved early stage that the hydroxychloroquine didn't make a difference because they were going to survive anyway. And the other 2 are from a faulty Brazil paper, which should be retracted, and the fake Lancet paper, which was. So the vast majority of studies on hydroxychloroquine show that it is effective COVID treatment when taken therapeutically in the early stages of the disease. Those that are saying it's the studies that show it's not were studies done too soon or too late. So there is a cure. There is a cure in respect to the therapeutic treatment. Also, a Newsweek article by Harvey Rich, who's a professor of epidemiology at the Department of Epidemiology and Public Health at Yale School of Public Health, and author of over 300 peer-reviewed papers, says as follows, I'm usually accustomed to advocating for positions within mainstream of medicine, so I've been flummoxed to find that in the midst of a crisis, I am fighting for a treatment that the data fully support, but which, for reasons having nothing to do with correct understanding of the science, has been pushed to the sidelines. As a result, tens of thousands of patients with COVID-19 are dying unnecessarily. Fortunately, the situation can be reversed easily and quickly. He then sums up, Dr. Rich sums up by saying, this is a massive disinformation campaign against a known therapeutic remedy for stopping the progression of COVID in patients when done early. He further states that the evidence is in favor of hydroxychloroquine benefit is in high-risk patients treated early as outpatients is stronger than anything else he's ever seen. And the statement about high-risk patients, i.e. those over 60 and with chronic conditions when treated early stages of COVID have essentially a 100% recovery rate, there's nothing refuting that. There's nothing refuting that. Department of Health, please come forward if you have something to refute that. There's nothing to refute that. So this is exactly the group that we're talking about here in Tarrant County. We're here for the Tarrant County safety of the Tarrant County residents, where we're now going to be locked down for 90 days. But I say this for the commission. You should push for measures that get help for the sick, not mask the healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines, for your opinion. Kevin Moore?
My name is Kevin Moore. Every Tuesday for 7 weeks, I've come here to demonstrate that masks are ineffective, physically harmful, and a tool being used for social programming. That the government and media are using fear to control the people, and they have an agenda of forced vaccinations, a digital currency for total control and taxation, and want to eliminate all who oppose them. To date, I've seen no change in your attitude or policy except for more resistance at the front door and animosity towards people who don't wear masks. Last week you stated that the people trusted you and nothing needed to change. I don't know who you're talking to because not one person I know thinks what's going on is legitimate or necessary. Your policies have wreaked havoc on this county's social and economic structures. I first heard about these weekly commissioner meetings early in the morning on July 14th. I saw a post on my Facebook feed that I could not ignore, almost like it was highlighted on my phone screen. I knew I was supposed to start coming here every week. At first I thought, who's going to listen to me? I don't have any political or legal credentials. Personally, I don't care about any of that. I just want to obey God. Thousands of years ago, there was another man who felt the same way. His name was Moses. He was charged with the task of asking Pharaoh to let his people go. They were enslaved by the world's most powerful ruler at the time. When Moses first asked Pharaoh to let Israel go, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. He responded by putting his foot down even harder on the necks of the Israelites and issued an executive order to make the people find their own straw for the bricks they made. If they had time to complain, they obviously weren't busy enough. In reality, it was Moses complaining, not the people, because they were too controlled or too fearful to speak up for themselves, but he was their voice. Over and over, Moses came before Pharaoh and performed powerful miracles, and God kept sending plagues on the nation. But Pharaoh remained stubborn and refused to yield, even in the face of catastrophic losses, both in terms of lives and property. After the 9th plague, Pharaoh got so angry with Moses that he told him if he ever saw his face again, he would kill him. I imagine he was tired of being shown up by Moses in his own palace in front of his servants week after week. Moses replied, "Just as you wish, I won't ever appear before you again." Soon after, God killed the firstborn in nearly every Egyptian household, including Pharaoh's. He finally relented and let Israel leave Egypt, only to change his mind again. Pharaoh chased them down and pinned them against the Red Sea, but God performed a miracle, and in one day, he and his army were destroyed because he refused to listen to God. My dad recently told me something profound that I will never forget. He said, whenever someone tells me they don't believe in God, I tell them that I can prove he does. Without fail, they ask, how are you going to do that? My dad replies, well, let's pray together and ask God to remove all of his protection, favor, and provision from your life. Then when it's all gone, you'll know that he was watching over you all the time. Given the lack of positive responses about the issues that the people have brought before you each week, I've come to the conclusion that there's only one thing left to say. After today, you will see my face no more. I want you to know that I'll be praying that God shows you that he's real and what's going on in this county, state, country, and in the world is not his will. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for being here. Jody. Followed by Krista, followed by Sherrod Perry.
My name's Jody, and once again I have to change what I said because I heard what you just mentioned about the mask being an inconvenience. And I want to assure you it's not an inconvenience for me to lose my job because I can't wear a mask. I've been traumatized by not only judges in my family fraud court case and losing my children. I've been traumatized by my ex-spouse and something he did that I'm not going to share with everybody, but I can't wear it. So now I can't go buy food, I can't pay my bills, and I'm completely broke. And I don't depend on government handouts, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But I don't call this an inconvenience. I call it a crime against humanity, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to survive. I will tell you, I just recently, because I haven't been here for 3 weeks, I've recently driven all the way to Maine and all the way back on different routes, and I've handed out over 8,000 to 10,000 leaflets that I'm handing out today. The only thing that's changed is the bottom part about rallies coming up and groups that people should get involved with. So I'm going to start where I wanted to and get as far as I can, because I want people listening to hear these questions. Have you or your family or business been affected by the handling of this coronavirus? Are you a business owner and still believe a mandate, regulation, requirement, or suggestion is a law that can be enforced? Because it cannot. Have you lost business due to unlawful mask mandates, shutdowns, or felt you had to turn away customers that cannot wear a mask due to medical reasons because you fear a shutdown? Do you know what wearing a mask can do to a healthy person? If you cannot wear a mask due to medical or mental health reasons and have been discriminated against in public places, do you wish to learn more about your rights? If so, I hope you're reading those leaflets. Do you have children heading off to school being forced to wear a mask or take a flu vaccine that used to be voluntary? Are you concerned about child trafficking being easier when your child's face is possibly, or a possible abductor's face is covered? Are you concerned about a mandatory coronavirus vaccine that may harm you and that is imminent if you don't stand up against this? Are you an employee whose health has been impacted by being forced to wear a face covering and struggle daily by this violation, or lost your job like I did because of this fraudulent order? Are you a member of the public that actually believes it's just a mask, or one that is awake and knows it's not just about a mask? Did you know Judge Whitley changed the virus pandemic language to a disaster? And do you know what a disaster is funded by? Child trafficking of Title IV D&E. That's what it's funded by. Did you also know that Judge Whitley and everyone up here has committed malfeasance and misfeasance of office, including violations of Texas Code 3901, 3902, 3903, abuse of official capacity? Are you aware the positive numbers of the virus are inflated and that many people have waited in line for a test, didn't get one, but received a letter in the mail stating they were positive?
3 minutes.
Are you wondering why? Thank you for your comments today.
Finally, I want to say I was treated better in Democratic states, and I was shocked because I'm staunch conservative, treated much better than I am here.
Thank you, Jody. Krista, followed by Sheridan.
Krista have a last name?
Not that she put on the phone.
Okay.
We're going to do Sherrod Haley first.
Is Krista here?
She's here. But she asked if she could go after Mr. Perry.
Okay. Mr. Perry.
All right, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Okay, so I'm going to lead off. I want to kind of just give you a list here of who and what has tested positive for COVID-19. Dogs have tested positive. Cats have tested positive. Lions have tested positive. Goats have tested positive. Papayas have tested positive. And I have articles I can show you. Goats have tested positive. And lately I learned that chicken wings tested positive for corona. Okay? There's the article. So what am I getting at? We've been talking about the tests and a lot today. There is actually a lot of evidence to say that the test is not very accurate and is actually, and in fact, again, I'm not a doctor, and like I said, a lot of folks aren't doctors, but I would point out to you that the head of the WHO, Tedros, he's not a doctor either. Okay, so so we're talking about who's a doctor, who's not a doctor. Neither is the head of the WHO. He's not a doctor. So we're all talking about, who's the expert? Well, there's lots of doctors that I've heard from who have talked about this approach and how it's again counterproductive. So let me just address this counterproductive point one more time today. If you want to beat a virus, you need healthy people. You need healthy immune systems to beat a virus. So if you are covering up people's face and restricting their fresh air and their oxygen, that weakens their immune system. If you limit their ability to earn a living, that creates financial stress and psychological stress. And we all know that stress is a major factor in weakening the immune system. So, and if you limit activities such as going to the gym, you limit activities as going to church. Again, these are all affecting people's social and physical health, and therefore weakening their immune system. So again, when I say it's counterproductive, when I say counterproductive, I'm saying that all these measures have a negative effect on people's individual health. So if you have a weaker population, yeah, guess what? You're going to have cases or whatever these tests are testing for. But yeah, all these things, vitamin D, vitamin C, sunlight, these are all things that people need. And so I'm advocating for natural immunity, okay, not unnatural immunity. And when I say unnatural, I'm talking about vaccine. I'm talking about synthetic immunity, something that some men have created and want to inject into people whether they want or not. That is unnatural immunity. That is a vaccine that, from my research, is going to modify people's DNA. And a lot of people are not going to be comfortable with that, including myself. But after going through this for 6 months, folks may be so tired of this and so afraid of the virus that they really should be afraid of, they'll take the vaccine just to get this over with. But even by their own admission,
3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, they're telling us that the vaccine won't even be enough. They'll need several more shots after that. So,
thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Okay, Krista, come forward. Take your time. Come on. Take your time. You pull the microphone down a little bit. Make your comments.
Do I need to do this one
No.
also?
You're fine.
Okay, is that good?
That'll be great. Thank you.
First, I would like to say thank you. Thank you all for serving, all of you. I realize how important this is in our community, and I know not everyone steps up. Thank you for serving our community. I just wanted to address the studies that say that masks work and don't harm. There are more than 40 studies that show that masks don't work. And there are several studies that show that they cause harm. And I can give you guys the links to those studies if you'd like. I also have a handout today on carbon dioxide toxicity that I have plenty of them for anyone who would like one.
If you'll give those when you get finished. There you go.
It goes through the symptoms when you're breathing too much carbon dioxide and lower levels of oxygen. It goes through the different levels of symptoms that there are. It starts with drowsiness. And we know that drowsiness just in itself, at 1% volume in your blood level, you get drowsy. And we know that that can be a serious hazard when people are operating heavy equipment. Even just, for instance, the forklifts that they operate in Costco and things with other customers there on the aisles. So my mission out in the public is to educate as many people as I can about this so that they watch for the symptoms in themselves and take measures to stop it at 1% at the drowsy rather than going on to at 8% unconsciousness. And then beyond that, it goes to death. Also, I'd like to, and in measurements under masks, they did a mask.
2 minutes.
They measured under masks, and the carbon dioxide levels went from acceptable to over 10,000 parts per million in less than 30 seconds. And the acceptable level, according to the OSHA, is 1,200 parts per million that's set for our classrooms, so for children. So
over 10,000 parts per minute, over 5,000 parts per million is considered extremely hazardous. And then otherwise, and the oxygen level goes, the required OSHA level is 19.5%, and under a mask, under the most permeable masks, it's 17.5%. And 19.5 is the minimum required by OSHA for a working environment. So, and the bad ones, it goes down to 15.5% or even lower. So I just wanted to point out that there are hazards with it, and then there are treatments, and I also have a handout on vitamin C, if I could.
You'll give that to Mr. Manis. Sure. Krista, thank you very much for coming out
Thank
today.
you so much for letting me speak, and thanks.
You bet. Now that is all the public audience participation forms that I have as it pertains to the COVID. So with that, Mr. Manius, we will proceed.
Court members, we could go to the administrator section. The first item deals with declarations as far as local disasters and statewide disasters. While there was no declaration by the governor this week as related to the coronavirus, the governor did issue an executive order and a declaration of disaster as relates to the two hurricanes, or the hurricane and the tropical depression, that I believe we sent you some information on yesterday evening. So,
and that may be, David was working on the possibility of signing an emergency declaration for that. He pulled out of the files the old one on Harvey, which was dated exactly the same day 3 years ago.
So we can go to item number 2. This is discussion of possible action concerning activities associated with the impact of the coronavirus. We have Guidehouse ready to start making their presentation. Katie, are you on the line?
Yes, GK, I am here.
You'll go ahead and start.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. This is Katie, as GK said. So if we can go ahead and start on the second slide, we'll start with the project status like we normally do. So all activities are currently on track. Under key activities, you'll notice a handful of new items. These new activities are primarily related to the ILA distribution. We're working very closely with Russell and the team on drafting a closeout process to enable the county to close out the ILA distributions with municipalities as funds are spent and documentation is received. We are also providing support in reviewing the municipalities' budgets and reports that they are submitting to the county. We are also initiating office hours for municipalities to provide them an open forum so they can ask questions around eligibility, reporting, or any other questions they have around CRF or FEMA. The last activity related to the ILA distribution is the supplemental payroll guidance, which has been on our current activities for a couple weeks now. So this guidance has been drafted, but we are anticipating that further guidance from the Treasury will be released in the coming weeks around substantially dedicated and substantially different. So we are putting this on pause before we finalize, waiting for the Treasury guidance to be released. We've been waiting for it for a couple weeks. We're hoping to see it sooner rather than later, but that will remain on our current key activities until that Treasury guidance is released to the public. We continue to provide support and guidance related to the documentation required by FEMA Public Assistance. We are also continuing to work with the county to review NGO application eligibility, and we are also continuing to provide ad hoc responses for eligibility questions or any other guidance needed by the county. So today we're going to provide a brief update on the 4 pillars and then an update on the county spend. Are there any questions on our current activity? If not, we can move to the next slide for the pillars of focus. So following the forum that we've used the past couple weeks, I'm going to highlight the things that have been updated on this. This is similar to what we've looked at the past 2 weeks with the 2 testing sites opening. One opened yesterday and one is opening later this week. Under social services, an update on the NGO assistance program. The funding recommendations will be presented on a continuous basis. Kristen and GK's team will be providing more detail around the NGO program and also the rest of the county programs after our presentation. And then there's no updates under economic stimulus or local partners. Things are continuing to move forward, and we are continuing to work with the county on all of those. Any questions on the 4 pillars? No. If not, I will pass it over to Rachel to give an update on the county spend grant opportunities.
Thank you, Katie. So here on the County Spend Update grant opportunity slide, we have an overview of the county's grants. There have not been any new awards since last week, so in total we are still at about $229 million in grant funds that have already or will soon be received by the county. There are new expenditures against these grants, which are captured on the next slide. Any questions before we move on? So if not, we can move on to the expenditure slide. And here on the County Spend Update expenditure slide, we have our overview of expenditures. The total amount of invoiced and encumbered expenditures is about $101.5 million, which is an increase of about $5 million from the previous week. And this reflects some small increases in testing, social services, and multiple grants, as well as about $2 million in each economic stimulus and in emergency response. And the economic stimulus increase is the result of small business assistance grants being issued. We also have the expenditures pie chart, which reflects the proportion of expenditures from the different accounts. Any questions on this slide before we move on? With that, we can move on to the next slide of the County Spend Update COVID-19, and Katie will wrap up.
Thanks, Rachel. So this again is our pie chart where we are identifying potential funding sources for the incurred expenses, or the expenses that the county has incurred up to last week when we received this report. So as of right now, we have identified $19.4 million of eligible expenses under FEMA PA. About $6 million is included on the initial PW from the last update I saw. So once that has been submitted, we will update this to note what has been submitted for reimbursement. Moving over to the CRF, the county has expended $73.2 million. That is primarily related to the ILA distributions, but also includes the other pillars that Rachel was talking about on the previous slide. We've also identified $5.3 million of additional eligible expenses that are not eligible under FEMA PA, and those expenses are primarily the PA-1000 expenses that aren't FEMA eligible. That leaves $103.5 million earmarked for the county 4 pillars and the county operations, and that leaves a remaining $27.8 million of CRF funds that are not currently earmarked for any other purpose. So moving down onto multiple grants, so the expenditures we're going to talk about here tied back directly to the grant opportunities that Rachel spoke to on the previous slides. So under eligible expenses, the auditor's office has tracked $3.6 million of eligible expenses for the grant opportunities discussed on the previous slide. That's leaving $15.9 million earmarked for those specific grant purposes of those multiple grants on the previous slide. And then finally, we'll move over to the right side where you'll see the blue pie chart, which just is a summary of the total expenses. So the county has expended $101.5 million to date, with leaving $119.5 million earmarked for 4 pillars, or also the multiple grants that have the specific eligibility requirements and specific expenditures that they can incur, leaving $33.5 million remaining. Now, just to note, like we have last week, that does include an estimate for FEMA PA of about $25 million. This number could be greater than or less than this $25 million, so your remaining number will fluctuate based on that. Are there any questions or comments on this slide?
I guess I have, maybe 2 questions. One, have we submitted anything to FEMA thus far? When are we going to start doing that? Crickets.
So we have not submitted anything to FEMA yet. We're collecting those documents, working with Guidehouse, and we had a somewhat of a detailed conversation about that yesterday. And it's our intent to, as soon as we get the documents that we have now, we've already talked about closing the POs off so that we can submit those. And we believe that we'll probably submit something within the next 2 weeks.
So within the next 2 weeks, we're going to submit something to FEMA?
That's my intent to have that happen, yes, sir.
T8000, one of the things that we've asked for the last couple of weeks is a detail of what's in that account. When are we going to see a detail of what's in that account?
Okay, I believe the budget was going to do that activity. Would you like to do that next week?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll have that next week for you.
May I say that?
Who needs to come up here?
The budget in the auditor office is meeting tomorrow and finalizing all of the data that will go over to CARES and what will be submitted to FEMA.
Okay.
Your Honor, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions that you might have for Guidehouse?
With regards to the amount of dollars that are distributed to everybody, and by everybody I mean we've got dollars that have come from the federal government for CARES Act and for other things. Are those numbers accessible as far as how much went to the state, how much went to TEA, how much went to, we know what went to the cities and to the larger counties in Texas, but TEA has made a suggestion that school districts might request funds from counties and cities. And one of the things that I would like to see before we sit down and have those discussions with the school districts is I'd like to know how much money was eventually or was originally given to TEA and or the state, and what has been done with that money, how much of it's been distributed. If some of the districts have actually gotten distributions straight from the CARES Act or from TEA, are those numbers something, Guidehouse, that you have access to?
I believe those are numbers you can get. We do have a contact who is working on the TEA task force, and I've been working on getting on her schedule to kind of talk through some of this. And I believe that is information that she would be able to provide us and give us some insight to. So I will work on getting connected with her. It's kind of difficult to get on her schedule right now, but I will continue to push on that and see if we can get on the schedule and get that information for you.
Well, I know that as schools are starting, they're finding that certainly their broadband capacity is being pushed. And so I'm not opposed to sitting down and having the discussions, but I'd like to have an idea of exactly what monies have been allocated to this and what monies have been spent. So if y'all, whatever you can do to help with that, I'd appreciate it.
And we will also ask Russell to work with our delegation and also the governor's office to see if we can get some of that information. Are there any other questions for Guidehouse? Okay, so let's do this. We're going to give you a more detailed breakdown of the 4 pillars, but not right now. We'll do that later on this morning or this afternoon. But what I would like to do is move to item number 3. And then, Your Honor, there are several items that we're going to be talking about on our section that I believe it would be important that the District Attorney's Office provide legal guidance to us. So once we get completed with number 3, I would ask that we break to go into closed session.
Okay.
So, members of the court, if we can go to item number 3, we're recommending that the Commissioners' Court consent to the continuation of the First Amended Declaration of Local Disaster, which was issued by the county judge on March 18th in its entirety until and through November 30th, 2020.
You said the 18th, but I believe it was actually the 13th.
Okay, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
One comment. Judge, I appreciate your stepping up to be the tip of this spear. But this order is not just you. This is an order from the Commissioner's Court. And we all stand behind this order. It's for the good of our community, and I apologize to no one for it.
Thank you. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and with that, I would just make you aware of the fact that I have extended the order with regards to businesses and their need to require the order for them to require masks. It was the one that was originally issued on, well, it was last issued, I guess, on August the 20th. We're extending it today, August the 25th. It was originally issued on June the 25th. So that is, I've got a signed copy of that for whomever.
And we'll ask that the court receive and file that after we come back from closed.
Okay, with that, then we'll recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. From our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
So when we recessed to go into closed session earlier today, we talked about the fact that we were going to give you an update on the 4 pillars. Ms. Tidwell is going to talk a little bit about the Small Business Assistance Program. Renee, do you want to do that now?
Yeah. Sure. So you have in front of you the weekly statistics that show the dollars and the amounts of the program. So with this, the checks that are going up this week, there's 1,152 checks for the cumulative total of the $9.3 million that's been dispersed. But I wanted to share a little bit more that isn't actually reflected in those numbers. We still have about 400 applications that are in what we call secondary review. We had one person actually perform the review of the application, and then we have a higher level manager or senior manager that's reviewing whether or not the first person missed anything or if there's any questions. We believe by the end of the week that we'll only have 200 of those left. So that's 200 that have not been determined whether or not they're eligible at the end of the week. If we back up and say we start with the 2,977 that we received, I'm going to round these kind of off for you. So we had about 335 that were City of Fort Worth to begin with that were completely ineligible because they were in the city. We paid the 1,152. We currently think we have another 400 and about 30 that are not eligible. And that could be anything related to they actually didn't suffer a loss due to COVID. They were actually not in business on January 1st. They were in a type of business that didn't qualify, such as a lending or investment institution. We are still finding duplicates. And potentially, again, they were not actually owned and operated in Fort Worth, or we're still waiting on documentation. So our goal for where we are is we believe next week that when we push through, we would only have those other 200, because that's about what we've been able to push through, is about 200, which would take us then to the 1st of September that we'd be done with our initial review, secondary review, and awarding. We would be down to all of those businesses where we were still looking for information, where we still needed a document, etc. That then would continue on for several weeks, but the bulk of them will have been processed, reviewed, and distributed. My goal is by that first week, the end of the first week in September. I know it's been a slow process and we're trying to finish it up, but that's kind of where we are today. So if there's any questions with that.
Before we go into and talk about the rental assistance, I do want to talk a little bit about the testing. You heard Mr. Tanasia earlier today talk about the fact we have over a large number of testing that occurred. We did open up the North Richland Hills H2O Park yesterday, and this was in conjunction with TETM, and TETM is an excellent partner with us in this program. We, I think, Commissioner Fickes, you were actually there, but we tested 231, and that site is going to remain there, I believe, for some time now, about 6 weeks. We look at that as somewhat of a permanent site. Commissioner Brooks, day after tomorrow, we're opening up the permanent site down at TCC South Campus. And I believe that you've been there to see the tent and the whole setup, and it goes back to the tents that we bought and the support structure in those tents. Mr. Phillips and his crew have done an excellent job. We've coordinated that with TCC and especially their campus police. And so we look forward to opening that up and the city of Fort Worth is going to join us and help run that particular program. That starts.
Will open up on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Morning at what time?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yes, sir. And that site will run at least initially 3 days a week. Be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We wanted to get into the weekend so that people who are working can run by there and get tested. So when we look at the rental assistance, and just kind of give you the information that we sent out to you yesterday, currently we have received about 617 applications. We've approved 319. Ms. Ward is leading that particular effort. One interesting thing is that we've been working with the JP courts, and we have been able to look at those that have had a notice of eviction. 169 of those. We worked through 47 of them. The other 63 we're still working through. The dollar amount, you'll see that on your program. If it's funded for 3 months, we will have expended $1.1 million. If it extends for 4 months, then it's $2.2 million. And if we continue our presentation, we talk about the NGOs, the non-governmental organization. I'm not going to give you a report on that today because Kristen is going to go ahead and we have 2 action items as it relates to the NGOs, and she'll be able to speak toward that. Then again, on the municipal distributions, you all know that we have made 100% of those distributions, and we have funded 10 chambers for $43,000. So that's our report as it relates to item number 2, and we're ready to move forward unless the court has some additional questions.
I'll move on.
Okay, so we've already taken action on item 3, so we can move to item number 4. Item number 4, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court receive and file the executive order that Judge Whitley issued today, August 25th, 2020.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Kristen is going to do items 5, 6, and 7.
Good afternoon. I'll briefly review the NGO program, and if you would refer to the funding chart that you have in your packet there. It's the same format as last week. The numbers obviously are different. As of yesterday. There are 36 still under review. About half of those are ready for recommendations next week, so that number is quickly diminishing. I have 14 new recommendations for you today, as well as agreements with 6 whom you've previously approved amounts. There are 69 then still under review, awarded, or recommended, and then you'll see the dollar amounts there. It still looks like we'll be a little under $9 million total for this NGO program. And then you have a chart behind that tells you the status of each of the 150 applicants. Do you have any questions over those numbers or application status?
So let's go ahead and move to item number 5.
So item number 5, requesting approval of recommended funding amounts for 14 organizations as part of the Care for Tarrant NGO Assistance Program. I will point out one typo on your charts so as not to have any confusion. For the Grapevine Relief and Community Exchange Program, the 2 amounts, the individual amounts of $4,049 and $19,000 are incorrect, but the total amount of $340,000 is correct. And the 2 amounts should be $97,126.43 and $243,672.88. But again, the total recommended amount is correct.
Kristen, I only see 7 organizations.
There are 2 pages to that attachment, sir.
I'm looking on my laptop, on my computer, and I only see 1 page.
Here's a printed copy for you. Happy to read those out if that would be helpful. Any questions over those 14 NGO recommendations?
Move approval.
I second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I guess we can go back from these are the pages where you're saying they're recommended, right?
The 14 that are being recommended for funding are on pages that look like this. They would be with that particular court, item number 5.
Yeah. 2 pages.
And they are in the court book. When did we, do you know where you published that?
I'm sure I've got it here somewhere, but just didn't find it.
GK just handed me that.
They should be in your electronic court books.
Okay.
I'll look at that later.
Okay.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, item number 6 is a request for approval of agreements with Colorful World Foundation, Crowley House of Hope, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tarrant County, Artisan Productions, Christian Women's Job Corps of Greater Arlington, and Arlington-Mansfield Area YMCA for the distribution of CRF as part of the NGO program. Those 6 agencies are listed as well as their total funding amounts on the front of the court communication there. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will point out one of those agreements, and that is for the Arlington-Mansfield Area YMCA. That program will be providing supervised virtual instruction for students whose schools are still closed for in-person learning but need supervision during the day while their parents work. And I know that's something that's been discussed in court to some extent. That is a similar program to the one we'll discuss in item 7.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, item 7 is requesting approval for an agreement with Clayton Youth Enrichment for the Tarrant County School Age Child Care Collaborative Program. The Tarrant County School Age Child Care Collaborative is made up of 4 area agencies: Clayton Youth Enrichment, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Tarrant County, Girls Inc. of Tarrant County, and YMCA of Metropolitan Fort Worth. Like the agreement just approved with Arlington Mansfield YMCA, this one will provide supervised virtual instruction for students whose school districts are closed for in-person learning.
So do you want to talk about the fact that it's a combination with the City of Fort Worth?
It is, yes. So this is this proposal from Clayton was presented to both Tarrant County and the City of Fort Worth. What this agreement would provide is $170.50 per child per week for those students who reside in Tarrant County outside of the City of Fort Worth that are enrolled in this program. They will be taking a similar funding agreement to City Council for consideration, to Fort Worth City Council for consideration, to fund those who reside in the City of Fort Worth.
That agreement starts the 8th of September and it ends
October 30th.
October 30th.
Yes, sir.
And the total amount of that is?
So the not to exceed amount is $767,000. That is the projected amount of total enrollment. The amount will likely be far less, but we have to assume the full risk in the case that every student enrolled in that program might be a Tarrant County resident outside of the City of Fort Worth.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Board members, if we could move to item number 8 now. We're requesting the Commissioners Court to approve interim funding for the Family Drug Court program for a period not to exceed 90 days. At 90 days, it would be $12,500.
Move for approval.
Approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 9 is a similar request. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve interim funding for the continuation of the Criminal District Attorney's Protective Order Unit for a period not to exceed 90 days. If it runs 90 days, it's $25,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
On item number 10, we're requesting that the court approve an ILA between Tarrant County and the City of Lake Worth for the regulation of game rooms operating within its municipality.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 11, this concerns an item within the Sheriff's Department. It's the game room permit unit. You might remember when we initially created that, we had 3 peace officers and a support person. It ran through August 31st so that we could evaluate that particular program. We've been working with the sheriff on this. We're recommending that we fund this program for 1 additional month. That will take it to the end of our fiscal year, and fund it with 2 peace officers and 1 clerk.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Tidwell?
We have one item we're asking the court to approve, and that is to receive and follow the auditor's review of the financial systems and controls associated with the county clerk's probate section.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion off. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I'm going to handle the next couple items, and then Robin's going to handle the rest. So our second item is approval of fiscal year 2021 compensation recommendations. Last week, we approved all of the compensation recommendations with the exception of structure adjustments. Today, we've got some more options for you with regards to structure adjustments. As you know, right now, included in the budget is a 0% structure adjustment. You see the cost of the additional proposals there, a 1% structure and a 3% structure. I don't really have any other information for you, so at this point, I'll be happy to entertain any questions or provide any info that you may need.
Someone had asked me if we were going to do that. I didn't realize we were going to actually end up discussing that, and the person who wanted to speak to that matter is not here at this point in time. I don't know what the feeling is of the rest of the court with regards to structured adjustments. I guess where I'm at, do we know yet exactly, or do we have any clue as to what Dallas County is going to do?
I do not know yet. I've not heard.
Have we called and asked?
Yes, last week I called. They had not made a decision.
So with right now where we stand is with no structure adjustments, we're looking at about an $8.9 million increase. It goes, with a 1%, it goes to 10.2, which is, I guess, about 1.3. And then a 3% structure goes to 12.5. Again, John is not here.
Might I suggest we hold this?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
To hold this for maybe a week or so?
I don't have.
I think we're wanting to maybe find out what some other counties around do.
Okay, so that's, any reason why we shouldn't hold it for a week?
We can hold it for 1 week. And that might be a good thing to do anyway, because we are still in the process of seeing how much additional revenue we may have. Because when the budget director presented the budget at our initial budget hearing, it factored in a zero structure, and we came to you with a balanced budget. We should know something better next week as far as if there's any other money available.
Yeah, because that would put us about if we went to the 3, that's 3.6 million. So it's about 1.2 million per 1%. Okay.
And I've contacted my counterparts in in Collin and Dallas County, and just correct, Dallas County has not quite gotten to a decision point yet. I've got an email back in my office as relates to Collin County. I believe they were looking at maybe 1%, if anything at all, as far as structure. Okay. But I will try to firm up those numbers. Those are the two counties that we tend to look at here in the metro.
So we're going to hold off on item 2 at this point in time.
Yes. Do you need a motion?
No.
No. Okay.
Our next item is an out-of-class pay extension. This is for criminal court administration. They have an auxiliary court coordinator that has been serving as a court coordinator since May 4th. They were asking that it be extended through November 21st, which is another 90 days unless the position is filled earlier. The cost of the general fund will be approximately $3,200, just below that, including fringe benefits.
So you're saying unless it's filled, so that means that individual is not still on the payroll? The individual
I'm sorry, the person is still on the payroll. They are out on a leave.
Okay, so they are coming back.
That's that's my understanding. Yes.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We are also looking for an approval to change to the tables of organization for the 396th District Court and the Sheriff's Office. Judge Gallagher is requesting the transfer of a deputy sheriff position from the Sheriff's Office to his TO. This will be his second judge's bailiff that he's got appointed to his court. There is no fiscal impact with this item.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob.
I'm here to request approval of Nationwide's guaranteed minimum interest rate option and the fixed account amendment to group flexible purchase payment deferred variable annuity contract to be effective January 1st, 2021. Tarrant County currently offers 457B or deferred comp plans. We have 3 vendors, Nationwide, Lincoln, and VALIC or AIG. Nationwide has recognized the need to make some changes to the guaranteed minimum interest rate on this contract. This is due to the market. They have been offering above market crediting rates, and that's no longer sustainable. So under Exhibit A, we have offered you 3 options. And let me kind of go through what Exhibit A is showing you when I get to it. And Exhibit A is showing you the guaranteed minimum interest rate and showing you that that is going to be progressing down from quarter 1 in 2021 to quarter 4 in 2023. And that is the amount that is the floor of what could be offered to employees. The minimum gross crediting rate is the interest rate that is actually would be paid to the employees on these accounts. And then that final column is an exchange or transfer limit, and that is the amount of transfer that could be done out of the whole of the account, not by individual. We are told by Nationwide that they've never hit anywhere close to these limits. We do have Greg Russell with the Nationwide on the phone, so if y'all ask me 2 hard questions, I will refer to him. So under option 1, the amount paid under the GMIR will go from 2.50 to 1%, and the minimum gross crediting rate would go from 3.38% to 2.06. In option 2, which allows a larger transfer amount but less in the GMIR and the minimum gross crediting rate. So it actually, at the bottom, in quarter 4 of 2023 would drop to 1.96. There's also a third option, should you all not want to take any action. What will happen is any additional funds that an employee is putting into those accounts would be defaulted into an alternative investment fund, and no one else would be able to join this plan. We don't recommend going that route. We do recommend that you choose option 1 or 2. Option 1 is a little bit richer to the employees, and I will try to answer any questions you may have.
And again, we talked with the guy from Nationwide, and he said he didn't feel like we would ever hit or have any problem with the exchange transfer limit, although he can't promise that. But.
And option 1 is richer for the employees.
It's a little bit richer for the employees with the interest rate.
Move approval of option 1.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our next item, we are requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an action concerning payment of administrative claims for United Healthcare and the amendment number 4 to the Administrative Services Agreement between United Healthcare and Tarrant County. In September 2019, the Commissioners Court approved various plan choices, service providers, and contribution rates for our 2020 healthcare benefits. This amendment would be effective from January 1st, 2020, this past January, through December 31st of 2022, okay? There are 3 exhibits involved in this. Exhibit 1 is addressing the Administrative Services Agreement, which includes flexible spending, COBRA services, behavioral health, as well as other services that support our health care plan. Exhibit B includes the service fees, including medical and EAP. So this is the standard medical services fees. In the future, we actually will bringing back to the court an additional contractual language to more specifically set out some of the terms of the EAP with United Behavioral Health and Optum. But these fees will be authorized to be paid by the county to United Healthcare based on this approval. And then Exhibit C includes the performance guarantee information. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
I move approval.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I hope that we will get all the contracts here shortly.
Yes, sir, we're working diligently on them.
How many are we missing?
We are missing, we still have the EAP, we still have the Cigna PPO, we have CVS Caremark, and we have the Hartford. I believe we'll have the Hartford to you in the next week or so. And the others we are still working on, but close.
And when did the contracts become available?
They will be effective to January 1st, 2020, this past January.
Do we have any contracts coming up next year?
I don't know if
Are we supposed to be doing a RFP this year on our dental?
that was the plan, but we've not gotten the dental contracts for this year signed. And here we are upon annual enrollment, so I do not anticipate they will put out an RFP this year.
But that is the plan, that's correct.
That was the initial plan, yes, sir. But I don't know if they still plan to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We just need to chat about
Yes, sir.
our overall operations and our satisfaction with what's going on in that organization.
Okay.
Quickly. Mr. Tanaya?
Thank you, Ron. So Public Health has two items for your consideration this afternoon. The first one is a request for approval of a provider agreement with AmeriGroup for healthcare services at Tarrant County Public Health. So this is an insurance company agreement so that we can accept insurance from AmeriGroup.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Second item, we're requesting approval for a service provider agreement between Tarrant County and Psychiatry Associates of Texas, PA, on behalf of Tarrant County Public Health Department. This is to provide psychiatry services for our Ryan White program. I believe the dollar amount of this agreement is about $20,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Vinny, I want to express my apology for the fact that you had to sit and listen to a lot of those folks talking negatively with regards to your opinions and beliefs and different things along that lines. As I said this morning, and I meant it very genuinely, we appreciate all of the hard work that you and your folks have done. We are very satisfied with the job that you're doing and with the opinions that you're expressing. And we know it's not always popular. And in fact, it's many times where you hear from the folks who we heard from today. But at the same time, I will tell you that there are many other folks out there who are very pleased with the way things are being handled. And I'm almost going to say I wish they were here, but no, I don't, because then our meetings wouldn't be over with till 8 o'clock at night. So just, don't let them get under your skin.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and again, thanks for stepping in and sort of, setting the record straight. We appreciate that. My health department team, I know that when they watch the proceedings, sometimes they can't believe what the comments are, and we all truly appreciate it. Thank you so much to all our court members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Batram.
We have 6 items for your consideration this afternoon. Our first item, number 1, is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2021-03, RFP for procurement card services for Tarrant County. Recommendation is to award per the terms of the contract, awarding to J.P. Morgan Chase Bank.
Move approval.
Second. We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for RFP 2021-48, assigning a contract for payroll services for temporary labor for elections administration. Our recommendation would be to award per the terms of the contract, awarding to the primary, secondary, alternate 1 and 2 vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second. We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, bid award recommendation for RFP 2021-60, RFP for interpretation services for the deaf and hearing impaired. Recommendation would be to award per the terms of the contract, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-65, issuing a contract for the purchase of sedans. Our recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the 5 primary vendors by item as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-72, signing a contract for automotive and light truck OEM repair and service. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis and percentage discount from list price, awarding section 1, 2, and 3 to the vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item, number 6, Melissa Lee will make that presentation to the court at this time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Item number 6 is a recommendation for RFP number 2020-190. It's for the COVID-19 project management support for the administrator's office. The recommendation is to Guidehouse Inc. per contract terms, and if approved, we're also seeking contract approval.
Move approval.
Judge, we do have an audience participation form, so sure.
I will second the motion. The form says it does not wish to make a comment. It just has the email attached. But why don't y'all talk us through this?
I'm sorry, Judge, you said I think this would probably need to be read into the record. I see that as marked that you not want to address the court, but they want to some following opinion.
Mr. Manius, would you please read it into the record?
The information that I have is that information. It's a one-sheet information, and I'll read that. This is from Tamara Reynolds. This is a comment on item 8H6, RFP 2020-190, COVID-19 project management support. Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC is commenting on the award recommendation being made. The award recommendation is to Guidehouse. Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC had the highest score, lowest price proposal. In addition, we agreed to remove all unfavorable terms and conditions from our bid. We are requesting that the Commissioners Court, or that the court consider this information when reviewing the award recommendation. Opinion field. This comment is related to agenda item H6, the award recommendation for RFP 2020-190 COVID-19 project management support. The purchasing department is recommending award to Guidehouse at a total price of $476,280 for 4 months of support. There is a 12-month option period. Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC had the highest score submission. Our total rating is 87.6 points. The Guidehouse total rating is 85.3 points. Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC had the lowest price. Our price is $331,384 for 4 months of support, which is $144,896 lower than the Guidehouse price. There is a 1-year option period. Assuming constant level of effort through the option period, the price difference of $579,584 is the base plus option periods. Grant Thornton Public Sector LLC agreed to remove all unfavorable terms and conditions from our bid. We were asked to confirm we would do so at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday, August 20th. We agreed to do so at 5:59 p.m. on Thursday, August 20th. While the county hopes for reimbursement, and at this point, I do not have anything further. That's how this one ended. Do you have?
Just a couple sentences.
Okay. I'll start with the last sentence again. While the county hopes to obtain reimbursement through CARES FEMA, this is not guaranteed as reimbursement rules are evolving. As such, we recommend the county reconsider the award recommendation given the price differential. And it's thank you for considering this information, and it's signed by Tamara Reynolds.
A lot of money.
My comment would be that there isn't anything that Guidehouse has done for us that is worth $500 and some odd $1,000 difference in price.
Was it 500 or was it 146,000?
146,000, and as you are aware through the RFP process, that the pricing is not the main factor. Guidehouse, in the first round of scoring, Guidehouse was the highest score. And through the best and final offer process, we selected the top 2 firms, which were Guidehouse and Grant Thornton, to participate in that BAFO. And through the clarification of the contract, we asked a series of questions, and then we rescored it. They did come out ahead in pricing based on the pricing structure. Overall, the scores were for the actual service was in favor of Guidehouse. The price difference, as they mentioned, for the 4-month period is $144,000.
But if we take it another year at that same number, that's where the 579.
That's just assumed.
Huh?
That's assumed. We don't know what the additional year is going to be. We have that clause in there just in case the funds were to be extended after December 30th.
So you did, yeah.
But we will work out a new contract.
But what you're saying is that when you went back and repriced, basically, you still look at the other criteria. Price is one of the things you look at. It is not the only thing.
It is not the only thing, but the part where the confusion lies is with the contract. So they had deviations from the contract. I sent those over to the district attorney's office for review. I replied back to Grant Thornton that we could not accept their changes to our contract. They were not in our favor. And so she left out a few things in her response. She said that I sent the response to her and she agreed at 6 p.m. But I sent her that we could not accept her additional terms, and they didn't reply back for maybe 4 or 5 hours. And when she replied back, she didn't say that she was going to accept our terms or not. So with the help from the district attorney's office, I asked her, did she agree with our terms or not? And then at 6 o'clock, that's when she said, I accept your terms. And then she also added the fact that there were other additional terms that we did not agree to for Tarrant County. And that's not a true statement. And that was the very last part that GK just read. Our only disagreement was, and it's in all of our contracts, about insurance. It was the audit clause, and I think the last part, right, indemnification. Yes. And so they were, from what I understood, they were trying to remove themselves from any liability. So
again, though, I mean, so obviously we got the problem with the contract and what they were saying they would agree to or not agree to.
Right.
Secondly, though, had the contract been perfect, when it came to the other criteria on which they were evaluated, along with the price difference, I mean, the contract to me is the contract, and that's the thing that we had a problem with. They didn't necessarily say we agree with everything, we just agree with certain things. But would they have been ahead in points at that point in time?
Well, yeah, the points were still where they were. They were they were pretty much disqualified once we couldn't reach an agreement on it as far as the RFP goes. Yes, we couldn't agree on the terms of the RFP. So we never made it to doing an additional contract, just like we just asked for permission to sign an additional agreement with Guidehouse. We never made it that far because we never got an agreement going as far as understanding the RFP, the terms of the RFP.
I mean, with you putting the year option in there and them being 144,000 less, and then over almost 600,000 less, I'd try to figure out how to make this work for the taxpayers. If we're talking that kind of money. I mean, we're sitting here, we got Sheriff's Department needs help, and these people need help, and, you know, $144,000 solves a lot of problems. $579,000, it solves even more problems.
Just a few points to consider. First of all, money that we're talking about is for the 4 months is not general revenue money. That will be paid for through the CARES Act, and so we wouldn't necessarily be able to use that $144,000 for Sheriff's Department or things like that. I think one thing that the court might want to consider on this, when we did and I was not part of the evaluation team, but I had a staff member on that evaluation team. When we went through the first evaluation, Guidehouse had the top score, and so they did best and final. And it's my understanding that when it came to pricing, that the price that Grant Thornton suggested on the first one was the same. They didn't lower their price, and Guidehouse did, but they didn't lower it enough. So the pricing issue is one issue, but this isn't a bid. This is an RFP, and so there's other things that we look at when we deal with RFPs. And when you look at the other criteria, for example, and it's in the court communication, respondents' experience and qualifications, Guidehouse was higher than Grant Thornton. Respondents' capacity and resources, Guidehouse was higher than Grant Thornton. Organizational and project methodology, Guidehouse was higher than Grant Thornton. And so when you look at those other type of qualities, we're now in a point, I guess we started 4 months ago with Guidehouse. We've pretty much incorporated them in how we are handling the expenditures and things like that. And you've seen the reports, and you get the report every week. To change, to bring in a brand new vendor to take us for the next 4 months, and the next 4 months basically is what we know we'll have COVID money to pay for, would not create a smooth operation. We'd have to start at least farther back than where we are now. And so,
why did we rebid this contract in the first place?
Because we were you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. We had, when we selected the first firm, we looked at several people. We made that a professional services agreement. We looked to the other large counties in the state of Texas. We were told that Bexar County had a contract worked on a bid that would allow piggyback information, which we could piggyback off of. The first one was an interim solution. Harris County has a bid in place, no interlocal piggybacking allowed. We had no choice but to put this out to bid because of the expenditures and the short-term agreement that we first had. We did it quickly. While I'm thinking about it, I want to compliment the people that worked. We put this RFP out in 2 weeks. That is, nobody in the world can do that. Everybody committed after hours, before hours, to make this thing work. It is about a perfect RFP in my estimation, in my personal, professional opinion. The other thing that needs to be said, Grant Thornton assumed a lot of things. They chose not to attend the pre-bid conference. 5 minutes into the pre-bid conference, Melissa made the statement to make everybody aware of which we also sent out an addendum to let people know of the short time frame we had to get this thing on the street and recommended and awarded. Our contract expires the 30th of this month. We got that put together. The other statement, the other thing that occurred with the information that we received from Grant Thornton, it did not change our original recommendation. Cutoff time for the agenda is Wednesday at noon. We waited a day and a half to see how things fell out, to try to save money, to your point. I certainly agree with that. Grant Thornton chose to turn we want to play ball an hour and a half at the end of the business day. That's pretty poor in my estimation.
Grant Thornton has also basically gotten out of the public sector business. They have sold their whole public practice audit business to another firm and gotten out of it. Yeah. It's my understanding.
All right.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
Mr. Skinner?
Good afternoon. We are requesting the court's approval of an interlocal agreement with the City of Fort Worth related to improvements to the White Settlement Bridge over Live Oak Creek. Be happy to take any questions that you have.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Is that it?
No, Your Honor, we do have one additional briefing item. That's item number D, which is the FY '21 budget issues update. Ms. Geis is here to address the board this time.
Hello.
Hi, Helen.
So I just want to confirm that Commissioner Johnson has the sheet that I'll be reading from.
I just want to be sure I got the sheet you're going to be reading from.
I don't know if I do or not, just a minute.
I had them.
It looks like this, and you passed it out earlier today.
Alice,
You mean like that one?
yes, sir, that's what it looks like. Alice confirmed that she did receive it. I just want to make sure that you have it as I start going over it.
What does it look like?
It's 4 sheets. It looks, can he see
Yes.
what I'm showing him? It starts off with non-departmental, and the title is FY 2021 Post-Budget Hearing Recommended Adjustments.
Could I see it?
Well, as soon as I get it up,
Bear with us a minute.
Yes, sir.
Where did you send that to, Helen?
Rachel sent it to Alice, and Alice confirmed that she had received it.
we've got it.
Okay.
All right, now I've got it.
Okay. So these are the adjustments since the budget hearing, and the very first items are in non-departmental. The $86,035 is the difference, is the additional amount of capital that's been added since the budget hearing. We'll be going over each one of those as I go through the 4 sheets. And non-departmental is $104,974. That's where the additional money was placed from the costs that have been going over this. And I'm going to hold on for just a minute because Commissioner Johnson is not seeing this.
All right.
Okay. All right, so the very first ones that we go over are the county auditors, and that adjustment decreases the county auditors. It's a result of a reclass going to job evaluation committee, so there was a reduction. The next one is the budget.
So wait a minute.
Okay.
We went to a reclass and it went down?
It either didn't pass or it didn't come in at the grade that it was entered into the budget.
Okay.
Same thing with the budget and risk management. That is a decreased result in the results of the reclass. Same thing. On
Did
elections.
the jobs reclass budget get reduced?
No, it did not pass.
That's what I'm saying. Did
That's
job
correct.
reclass budget get reduced?
It did.
Good.
Thank you. Elections.
She hasn't got that point yet, but she'll get it.
Yeah, no. I'm focused. Elections. HART, this is the maintenance contract for HART, and it was not in the original budget request. It is now being placed in the original, the FY21 budget request. That's $238,050. The next item is facilities. That was just a small amount in capital of $118 that increased when the final bid came in since the time they entered the budget. And remember, the budget was entered all the way back in March and April, and things have changed since then. The next line item is that was done during the budget hearing, and the request was to add the training simulator for the sheriff's office. The initial request was for $50,000, but since then, again, they've received a final quote, and it's $40,000. The next item is in the sheriff's warrants. This is adding back the extradition position. That's one position, and the associated costs with FICA, retirement, and group insurance. On the next page is the dispatcher, which was also one of the sheriff's original requests, adding it back into the budget. The following is the patrol positions. There are 2 of them, and adding those back in.
Now, these decisions, are these just things that you decided, or were these things we decided as we were going through?
This has been with extensive conversation and the sheriff being in my office and we going over each one of them and discussing it through. This is what I'm submitting to y'all for recommendation, for y'all's approval.
So does this cure this patrol? Does this do anything for our buildings downtown?
No. That is patrol out in the unincorporated area. For the buildings downtown would be courts and security. They did not submit a request for courts and security. In addition, 3 positions were already in the original recommended budget to you, to the Commissioner's Court. So in the FY21 budget that was submitted during the budget hearing, there were 3 courts security positions that were recommended and were not approved because you didn't approve this sheriff's office. But this is in addition to what we already submitted to you in the budget hearing.
Okay.
So in total, how many court security deputies are we talking about?
Court security in total would be 3 that were already on the budget recommended, and then the additional 2 patrol, 1 dispatcher, and 1 extradition.
So the court security, where are they? What was the intent that?
It was not for any. It was for bailiffs.
It wasn't for somebody sitting in the parking garages.
No, sir.
And again, we've got 3 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the family law where there's somebody down there in their control room all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the criminal courts building and then the civil courts building. The criminal courts building, a vast majority of the bailiffs belong to the judges, because we just approved another one today. And again, the discussion, I think the discussion has kind of come to, if they want bailiffs down there watching the garage for whatever number of hours, then there's basically a couple of options. 3 options, I guess. 1, we get the sheriff's department to put them down there. 2, the bailiffs do a kind of a duty roster and are responsible for having someone down there. Or 3, we go to a contract security service and put them down there. You can shake your head yes or no, or anything you'd like to in the middle of that.
Those are options, yes.
And it's my understanding that the sheriff has said with regards to the civil courts where he owns the bailiffs as opposed to the criminal courts where the judges for the most part own the bailiffs, that the sheriff has, I think, agreed to say, okay, you can use your bailiffs to do the duty like we may be talking about in the criminal courts. So if they choose to want to put people down there, they can choose the hours, however many hours they want, and how they're going to rotate the bailiffs in order to accomplish that.
In the course of a conversation with the sheriff, he did state that the bailiffs would be allowed to go down to the garage for security if needed, if instructed by the judge.
That's the sheriff's bailiffs, not the judge's bailiffs.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm referencing, are the sheriff bailiffs.
And the sheriff's bailiffs would be, for the most part, those that are in the civil courts building.
Correct.
Because most of the judges in the criminal courts have their own bailiffs. Or is that just the district judges?
I I don't believe that it's most of them. I know that there is a portion of them, but I don't know whether it's the district judges or the county judges. That would be an Ange question.
We just transferred 2 more today, didn't we?
One, we transferred one to the 396. The 396 already had one assigned.
I think many of them.
Okay. So they now have 2.
I think, is it on your court communication? How many? Yes, I thought it was. I don't have the court communication.
I can only speak to the criminal courts. I don't have the family or the civil information here, but CDC 1 through 4, each of those courts has 1 bailiff. The 213th has 2, 371st has 2, 372nd and 390. The 372nd and the 432nd have 1 each, and then Judge Gallagher, as we just did, approved a second one.
So there's 12 right there.
Yep.
Yep.
I know at least 6 off the top of my head in the civil and the family courts.
Oh, wait a minute, 6 that are owned by the judges?
Yes.
I thought all of those were owned by the sheriff.
No.
But you're telling me that the sheriff has said that those judges can control those bailiffs.
In the civil, I was referencing the civil.
But in the family law, we have somebody down there in a control room
Yes, there is a control room down in, yes, sir.
that is manned all the time anyway.
Yes, sir.
So that one really is covered. So we're now talking about the civil courts building and the criminal courts building.
So I just want to make sure that I'm not saying to you that that gate is covered. There are people in the control room. I want to make sure.
You're talking about the family law.
The family
Yes, sir, family law.
lodge is under the building, and you can't get in there unless you belong in there.
You can't get in any of our buildings unless you belong in there.
We've all got.
They've all got
Hey.
card access.
The garages?
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
garages. We're talking about the garages under the court buildings. All of them require card access.
For the, yes, sir.
So, and really, the justice, the family law has got somebody that is at least in that room looking at a screen, and looking at screens that cover that entire building.
Well, several, not just that building.
Okay, so they cover, okay. Okay. I'm just wanting to clarify that. That all came from the question of when you said you wanted sheriff's office, court security, that salary, which appears to be for one officer.
So the next item where it's a decrease under
Yes,
court
yes,
security.
yes.
So that is the game room position that was discussed earlier under GK's
Okay. So
items.
the one above that is for 2 officers, right?
That's for 2 patrol officers in the unincorporated area.
Okay.
Any more questions? In addition, I just want to state that in addition to the patrol positions, there is 1 vehicle and 2 radios, which are capital items. Constable 2 has requested a car allowance, and you'll see on the next page that he is removing a request for a new position, and you'll see that that's decreasing the capital. And the next page is over under Central Garage. So he is requesting to change over to a car allowance. We have several constables that are already at a car allowance, and the majority of them receive a car allowance now. Not all of them. Any questions? The medical examiner is again a result of a reclass. Going to the next page. This is a request from the facilities department to make personnel entrances.
Okay, now I'm
Okay.
medical examiner,
Mhm.
precinct 2. So we are now on which page?
It's going to be on page 3. They're not numbered, sorry, but it's page 3, and it starts off with the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center.
Okay.
With an increase of $15,417. That is to change the personnel entrance to card read only, so that's accessible, which frees up a building security person, because that will become card read only. It's a request from the sheriff's office.
That's one of our security people.
I'm sorry?
In that building.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
That could be one of the security.
Yes, sir.
Folks in the garage.
That's actually happening in 2 places that they are changing the doors, personnel entrances, one at Family Law and one at Tim Curry, to change them to employee access only.
And that's fine as long as the employee decides not to hold the door open for somebody else to come in. Moving on.
Moving on. So here is what was discussed in court and the budget hearing, reducing the CPS council fees in the 323rd by $600,000, which has mostly covered all of the expenses that we're talking about today that were added.
Didn't you spread $1 million in the other one?
I did, but that was in the budget. Well, that was already in the recommended budget to y'all. In the courts, we reduced just the $600,000 in the CPS 323rd council fees.
So is the net zero, or is the net 400,000 plus?
The net is $400,000 plus, because we did not remove it out of the council, out of the judges in the family courts.
So what makes us think that the 400,000?
Normally, again, as I explained in the budget hearing, the amounts that we have put out for council fees repeatedly year after year after year have not covered the actual council fees. There is a holding place over in a court security cost center where when the courts exceed their amount that's been budgeted in there, we start moving money over to it. And in past years, not this year because this is an anomaly, but in past years, we've exceeded the amount that was budgeted in the courts, we've exceeded the amount that was budgeted in court security, and started using undesignated to cover council fees.
Okay.
So reducing council fees in a court where it's really going to happen, I would rather not do that.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Okay.
I just remembered that there was $1 million one place and there only seemed to be 600,000 here, so.
That was to close out the cases that he had out there. That was already a decrease from what he had initially requested, but we are now removing that from the court from the budget hearing conversations. JP3, that is a result of a reclass. That the reclass did not come in as high as they had originally put in the budget. So now, I'm going to discuss 2 items that were discussed during the budget hearing, CPS and ACH. And ACH is going to be under the public assistance. So the very first one is Child Protective Services. If you recall, during the budget discussions, there were 9 positions that were moving out of CPS and going over to ACH. I've had communications with ACH and CPS. The ACH is requesting to cover 5 of the 9 positions that are going over there. And the budget office is recommending a $300,000 annual for 2021 to cover those 5 positions. Under CPS, they lost the 9 positions, but they did ask that the court consider adding positions back that did a different function. After looking at it and talking to them, the budget office is recommending that 4 positions a director, a night supervisor, and 2 clerical positions be added to help them offset their workload. And the 2 of these combined, of the $300,000 for ACH for 5 positions, and the $174,439 for 4 positions in CPS, is less than what was budgeted in 2021 for the contract.
So in effect, we're putting back the 9 positions that we were transferring out of CPS, doing some of those with ACH and some with CPS.
Yes, sir. So CPS, we had 40 and a half, so we'll be decreasing that by the 5, and then we'll be picking up the 5, or the recommendation is to pick up the 5 with ACH.
Okay.
So that would mean CPS still gets 35.5 FTEs.
They would, 35.5, yes, sir. Down from the 40.5 that we are currently, but in the 2020 and previous years budgeted.
Okay.
The next page. This is again results of a reclass. That's precinct 1 is a result of a reclass, JEC reclass. Precinct 2 is a
check. Just for the record.
So did I, Commissioner. No, for me.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of getting after her earlier.
All right, I did too. But Precinct 2, this is a new position that was in the budget when we had the budget hearing. The the evaluation of the job changed the grade, why there is an increase there.
The Lord give it and the Lord take it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
The next item is the $38,500 reducing capital. That is the offset for the car allowance under Constable 2. Constable 2. He is not going to take a new car that was originally budgeted for him. So in the 260, the non-departmental item is the difference of all of those items that you see. That money goes into the undesignated. And then the last one is debt service. And the auditors gave us less cash carry forward for the debt service, and so we decreased agent coupon fees by that amount. Now that is not, we have not received a final number on cash for the general fund. And hope the anticipation is that the auditor's office will give that to us on Thursday, the 27th. So, can we make it?
You can't
Can we
make
vote
a
on them
motion.
all at once? Or is,
So the question is, do you want to consider all of these in one motion, or do you want to do separate motions?
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
thank y'all.
Run.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
There being no further business, we are adjourned.
Wait.